Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Every Day is Saturday. I'm Matt Stahl, along with my partner, Brad Gatto here, and we have an exciting topic to discuss today. Before we get into that, Brad, what's up with you?
A new season in my household. And what I mean by that is I've got my two boys, and we've been doing winter baseball and basketball for both of them. And so with church being on Wednesday nights, the other 6 days a week were baseball, basketball. So it was 7 days a week constant. That just came to an end. Actually officially today. Baseball ends today, basketball's done already. So we're in a new season. We're in a season of I'll call it rest.
Yes.
That's an exaggeration of what it is, but I'm going to call it that anyway to convince myself that that's what it is. So
we're starting a new sport. So we have our two middle boys. Well, one of them played lacrosse, but both of them starting lacrosse here in this week. So I don't understand the sport.
I don't know anything about lacrosse.
It's crazy. Like wrestling and football and hockey all mixed together. I don't really get it.
And I think what's going to be an exciting episode and some really fun news to share. So
yeah. So today we're going to be talking about RIA.
You couldn't have made it sound more boring.
Come on. We've gone through some of this stuff before, the things that we'll talk about today, but we have an exciting transition coming up internally here. And that's part of the reason we're having this conversation today, is to just review. There's like an alphabet soup of acronyms out there on what's an RIA, what's an IAR, and what's a fiduciary. So we really just want to review all that and explain why we're making some of the decisions that we are.
Yep. Yeah, every industry kind of has their own set of acronyms, their own vernacular and language that, my wife, as an example, is a nurse. And when she comes home and talks to me about her day, I have no idea what she's talking about.
Yeah.
And so I realize for most people out there that are either looking for advisors and trying to, compare and contrast, like how this advisor is different from that advisor, or even the families that we work with here at Fiat, trying just to keep track of who we are, how we're licensed, who's overseeing us, like what are the pros and cons of having one type of advisor versus others, which if you didn't know, there are multiple kinds of advisors out there. So the bottom line is, at Fiat, as it stands today, we are independent fiduciary advisors. We'll talk about fiduciary in a second, again, just as a reminder. And Fiat has not always been a part of, I don't know that we've ever gotten into that history, but Fiat did not start as a fee-only fiduciary. So maybe when we made the move to the fee-only fiduciary world, the governing body in this for us is the Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC. And firms have the option to either go direct to the SEC as a registered investment advisory firm. So you're registering your firm direct to the SEC, RIA. That's how you can remember the R is first, registering with the SEC. Or you can go to an existing RIA and they can kind of take care of a lot of the back office stuff for you, right? Do that. The acronym of what we are is an IAR.
Couldn't be more confusing, right?
It's the same three letters. That's the problem. They're just scrambled. So it's not registered investment advisor, it's investment advisor representative. So actually, two of the three letters are the same and the same word.
Right. Right.
And the only word that changes is registered to representative. So we're IARs as of today. And so what we'll get into today is that Fiat is actually going to assume the role of the RIA.
The RIA.
Yeah, we are
investment advisor. Right.
We're going to start registering direct with the SEC, which we're super excited about. What we're going to talk about today is where we've been, give a little bit of history like we just talked about.
Yeah.
And then we're going to talk about what it means to be our own RIA, how that's good for the families that we work with, what that means internally for Fiat, and what that's going to bring to the table for us. And then we're going to end with just kind of an expectation for the existing families that we work with of what does that mean? If we make this transition, how does that change, or does it change anything for you?
Yeah. That's where Fiat was born from. There was three of us that were in a more traditional national firm, and we all came to the conclusion that the order of preference just didn't make sense to us. It was first please the shareholders, then the board of directors, then the clients, then the advisor. And so we quickly realized that just doesn't make sense. Why are we pleasing shareholders when they're not even our clients? And So the first step was to become independent. And, with that, you can choose to structure that in many different ways. And in 2009, in our birth as Fiat Wealth Management, really, we were independent advisors. We did operate in a fiduciary capacity. However, the way that we were registered, we didn't have to. So there was a lot of back and forth from 2009 all the way up till 2017. Practice that way. What if it's not in writing? What if it's not explicitly written down, but you still do follow those practices? And at a certain point, I realized, well, if this is the way we're going to approach things, then why not just only give ourselves one option?
Yeah.
And we did, I did consider creating Fiat as its own registered investment advisor at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And it just didn't make sense. I don't think it made sense. I don't think it was the best thing for the clients to do that, because we weren't at a scale where that would really benefit them or benefit us, frankly.
Yeah.
And so, when we look back, we have been operating from that fiduciary capacity since 2017 as the only option.
Yep.
So we've made the choice to link up with other registered investment advisors or RIAs to act as our back office. And that's what brings us to where we're at today.
And we weren't really ever operating in the commission-based, suitability-based world. So it was kind of like, well, why do we even have it? Why mess with it? And quite frankly, it brought a lot of additional work to us and scrutiny that, because we weren't utilizing it, just didn't make sense to have, right? It's kind of like having a second home that you never use.
Yeah.
You're like, well, I'm just going to cut ties with that and let that go. So we let that go. And to your point, I think one of the biggest things was scale. Because like any business, like
Absolutely.
the idea of bringing stuff internally only makes sense if you're, it's like, would you hire a full-time employee to do this job if you only really needed them for 5 hours a week?
Right.
But what if you need a bunch of little part-time employees, because you have kind of a lot of different things, but there are a lot of different hats that need to be worn. And so sometimes it makes sense to kind of use external resources to get that done. And so that's what we've done to this point.
I think it makes framework wise. Let's talk about how this benefits externally, or I'd say the families that we serve.
Sure.
How selfishly it benefits us internally.
Yeah.
So let's start with what are the positives for the families that we serve? So our clients.
I think the first one is stability.
Yep.
It points to stability in the firm, and we just didn't have the size to really justify being our own RIA. It was better for us to be an IAR, both not only for us, but again, for the families that we serve and giving them the options that we thought they deserved and that kind of stuff. So the fact that we're here today, now less than 5 years later and starting our own RIA, just that shows that what we're doing for the families is not only working, but we're growing because of that.
Right.
And through that growth, we're able to get to this point where it now makes sense to bring all these things we've been farming out internally and do them here. So I would say that points to stability, because I think the clients that we work with and the families that we serve would agree that what's in the best interest of both of them and us is that we exist tomorrow.
Right. Absolutely.
We both need to be around for this vision that we've casted with our families to continue. And so because of the growth that we've seen, and not just in pure, assets that we advise on behalf of our clients and the planning that we're doing on their behalf, but our team. I mean, it's pretty obvious if you go to our website, we've grown from a team perspective. And so we now have the bandwidth internally to bring some of these things in-house.
Absolutely. Into the efforts that do this, that means we're going to be around for a long time. And that's
a good point.
Frankly, what most people are looking for. And when we would meet a new family, often it can be really confusing to say, wait a second, you're Fiat Wealth Management, but this paperwork says Foundations or a different name of a registered investment advisor. And it's just a confusing setup. So this brings more clarity to know this is very, very simple.
Yeah, we have to introduce them to less people, a little bit less on the paperwork side, less cooks in the kitchen, so to speak.
Right.
And nothing bad. It was just, there was a better opportunity for us.
Right.
They were good. We were stepping into something that was better suited for us and the families that we serve. And to this day, we've had a great relationship with them.
Absolutely. Plan to continue.
Yeah, absolutely. But to your point, getting rid of that middleman, because ultimately they're doing a lot of things for us that now we have the bandwidth to bring in internally. And so that's going to help get our clients closer to everything that we do, because it's all going to be kind of here, and it gives us a lot more, or gives them a lot more clarity on what's going on.
Absolutely.
So I think you're right.
Yeah.
And that leads to the last point that we wanted to make, and that's control. You know, at the end of the day, one of the things we talk to the families we work with about all the time is how important it is to have as much control in your financial life as you possibly can, and to try to remove variables, right? Any good scientific experiment only works if there's only one variable, right? You kind of change, and everything else has to be a constant. And so bringing more constants in and removing variables, if done correctly, should always be a positive. And so a couple of examples of that, of where that control is going to come in, is one is fees. You know, in our industry, again, going back to those episodes where we talk about how advisors are paid, we've done a really good job of kind of hiding how advisors are paid and what internal expenses are. We have tried to bring clarity to that. So let me rephrase. The bottom line is, we have tried to be as transparent as we possibly can be about any possible fees and expenses that clients are going to incur in any investment type transaction, let alone the labor expenses of working with an advisor. But when you think about like the materials cost side of things, working with custodians like TD Ameritrade, trading costs, account opening and closing fees, platform fees, all these different kind of things, by being our own RIA, we have a little more control over what the client may or may not experience there, and whether that gets passed on to the client or doesn't. Right. You know, we've kind of lived or died by this idea that we're going to make this as simple as possible for clients. And so this gives us more control internally to make sure that it stays that way, which of course is positive for the clients. Another option, or another example, would be investment options. And so our existing RIA allows us to a certain extent to kind of do whatever we want to do. But now that we are our own RIA, we're going to make sure it stays that way, so that whatever new options come out, or what other asset managers we see kind of like their cream rise to the top, and we want to use them or replace an existing relationship, that we're going to have the ability to do that and not ever really be told what to do or when to do. And I think a final example I'd like to give there is just account management. Getting closer to the trade transactions, getting closer to the billing, getting closer to all that kind of stuff, that can, having that third party in there, as great as they've been as from a relationship standpoint, it just can add some lag time, right? The more cooks that are in the kitchen, sometimes it just slows things down. And so we're hoping, and I think rightfully so, that it's going to cut down on some of those, some of that lag time, little things, Matt, like we're going to be able to sleeve IRAs. And so if we've got multiple asset managers in an IRA, instead of the client having to have 3 or 4 different IRAs to separate all that out, we're going to simplify that and bring that together.
Right. Frustrating things and working with a giant corporation is the buck stops here. You don't get that often. And so a real good example is if we're working with a very large RIA and they decide to impose a $200 per account fee, if we're not our own registered investment advisor, answer is kind of, well, we can't do much. Now, if we decide to do that, we're the one that made the decision. So you can complain directly to us, and there's no pointing fingers. That's true. So the buck stops here.
You just put a lot of pressure on us now.
We can handle it. We got it.
I'm kidding. Well, how is this good? So that's kind of a good, concise story of how it's good for the families that we work with. What about for us here internally?
I'd say the first thing is our model for growth. Like you just alluded to this, but if you pay attention to our website and you watch, you'll see that our team has continued to grow and grow. And you and I both came to the conclusion that we're going to be able to impact a lot more people and families by creating more of us as advisors than we are by us trying to do that on our own. And I think that's pretty clear if you follow our story, that we've come to that conclusion. So our model for growth, this is going to support that much more. This is going to allow us to continue to recruit the right kind of people that fit our culture and that can help more and more families. And this will support that.
Anytime you can get, again, closer to the end user to affect their experience in a positive way. Now you and I are the ones that kind of get to make those decisions of how we want some of that back office stuff to look like to make it as easy and simple for our families as possible. Right. Because we're the ones making those decisions. And so as we grow, to your point, it's just going to make that much better.
Yeah.
I think the second thing is one of the exact same reasons it's positive for the families we work with is it's positive for us. It's control.
For sure.
Right. Because you just alluded to it in this whole idea of it kind of fits us for our growth model is we have a lot more control now over really everything. And how we want that interaction with our clients and their accounts to look, and the way that things are structured, the way that, fees are or not passed on, just all of it. It allows for us to kind of make those decisions internally, and being the fact that we're here every day, we have personal relationship with the families that we work with. We're going to be able to make those decisions and what we believe is for the best interest of our families, not just for the best interest of all of the families that are associated with an RIA that's not ours.
Right. Yeah.
So
along those same lines, I would say it still falls under the control, but it's just that direct relationship with our, if you want to call them vendors. So, we'll always have a third party custodian. If you want a refresher on why that makes sense, then feel free to ask at some point. We're not going to get into that today.
Yeah.
But
it's not that we weren't listening to the families before and then trying to affect positive change. It's just that we had to then go to the RIA that we had hired as our third party to try to affect this change. Whereas now we just get to make those decisions on our own.
Absolutely.
So I would condense that down into saying it's going to streamline some processes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I agree.
So if you are already part of the Fiat family, Matt, what can those people expect as we transition into becoming our own RIA? What's going to change for them?
Yeah. I think in having these conversations, we've distilled this down to a really, really simple phrase that I think really makes the most sense. It's same people, same account numbers, same processes.
Yep.
It's just one piece of that paperwork is going to have a different name on it. It's going to say Fiat Wealth Management.
Yeah.
So practically speaking, there'll be a DocuSign that will ask to acknowledge the fact that our registered investment advisor is now Fiat Wealth Management.
Yeah.
And frankly, that's the only expectation.
Yeah. So I'll say it again to make the point: same people, same account numbers, same relationships, same process. Right. So really, most things stay exactly the same. In a practical sense, to get down to the nitty gritty, Matt, what really does change is right now when a new family opens an account or an existing family opens a new account, the paperwork you're signing not only opens the account at the custodian, but then it gives the rights to the RIA, which is currently for us, Foundations Investment Advisors. Again, been a great relationship with those people over there. It gives them the right to build the account, trade the account, and do all these sorts of things. Because we're bringing that internally, we have to remove them from that hierarchy of being able to do that, and then just add us in there to be able to bill and trade and do all the normal things that advisors are doing on behalf of their clients.
Right.
And so it is going to require a couple of signatures through a DocuSign electronic packet. But outside of that, it really doesn't, to your point, it really doesn't change anything.
Yep.
So let me ask you some of the frequently asked questions.
All right. Oh boy.
Matt, are any of their fees going to go up?
No.
Pretty simple.
Yes.
Right. So no change in that structure whatsoever. There's things that are changing behind the scenes for us, but at the end of the day, nothing's going to change on behalf of the client. So same exact thing there. Matt, other than signing paperwork, do I need to do anything?
No.
Perfect. And then lastly, Matt, should I have any concern at all about this stuff coming internally to Fiat relative to your compliance and oversight and making sure that you're actually who's babysitting you to make sure you're doing what's in my best interest?
Yeah, good question. So, well, number one, the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Yep, SEC
is
so SEC before,
yes,
SEC now,
SEC before, SEC now.
Okay.
One thing we do up to this point, we have a outside compliance department that is ensuring, because the SEC is always changing what their expectation is.
Yeah.
And from an audit standpoint, when we're looking at our compliance internally, the only thing we're doing is bringing our compliance team internally, someone who's actually going to be here every day, interacting with people face to face. So if anything, I would say our compliance becomes even tighter than it was before.
Yep. Anything else that you want to add to that?
No, if someone does have concerns, obviously they can reach out to us and be more than willing to have further conversation. But this is all positive. This is frankly something we've been waiting for a long time. It's a thing to celebrate. We believe for both us and all of our families. And so this is a big milestone. We're very excited.
So you said it's something to be celebrated. So, and we haven't even talked about this. We should probably celebrate it.
We probably should. Yes.
We should party.
We should do that.
Well, you heard it here first, because this is the first time we ever talked about it. Maybe we need to throw a Fiat party and celebrate the fact that good things are happening for the families that we work with and for us here internally at Fiat. Matt, one of the things that we tend to do on our inner circle workshop that I don't know that we've ever brought to the podcast is we like to throw a random dad joke out there into the ether. And I got to do this because I heard a really good one the other day.
I thought you were gonna put me on the spot. So
before we wrap up, can I tell you a dad joke?
Yes, I'd love it.
So the other day I went into the liquor store and I was at the counter and I was paying for my stuff, and the guy asked to see my ID. And when I dug in my wallet to get to my ID, my Blockbuster card accidentally fell out on the counter, and he goes, "Oh, never mind."
You're covered. We got it.
Oh man,
that's great.
I thought that was pretty good. Blockbuster. That was a while ago.
Oh my gosh.
Everybody, I hope you learned a little something today, and I hope you also enjoyed the conversation that we had today. As always, we appreciate you guys listening to this podcast. Every day is Saturday. If you want to reach out to us, you can find us on our website, fiatwm.com, and keep watching that website, man. We're doing a lot of cool things. We actually had an entire photo shoot going on.
Yeah.
Felt like celebrities here on Friday because there's a lot of updates coming there. So check that out, fiatwm.com. If you've not yet subscribed to the podcast, what are you waiting for? Make sure that you get subscribed so you don't miss an episode. Couple episodes a month we got coming at you every other Wednesday, and we would love it if you would take this podcast and share it with the people that mean the most to you. As always, I'm Brad Gatto here with my partner Matt Stahl. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see all of you next Saturday.